everybody. Welcome to the Tea Factory podcast. Um, Today we are going to be talking about Love and Marriage Huntsville, season 10, episode 10, and it's called um, Like a Bat Out of Nell. Um, and, like I said before, um, there's been times when I was like, okay, do I want to review the show or not? Ever since Melody left, um, it's just been like an up and down thing. But I decided, like I said in my previous video, I'm gonna go ahead and review it. And I know I'm late because another episode has came, so I'm gonna probably upload that one tomorrow. But it's interesting to watch Love and Marriage Huntsville without Melody because those of us who are fans of Melody, let's just say that, because there's a lot of people that don't like her on these YouTube streets. So those of us who are fans, those of us who support Melody, um, a lot of millimeters have decided not to watch the show, but I'm still gonna watch it and review it because I feel like it's interesting to sit back and watch them eat each other like snakes. Because when Mel was on there, they were gaining up on her, and so now that Mel is gone on this episode, you see everybody gaining up on this Nell. So it's like, tag, you're it now. They don't have anybody to pick on since Melody's gone. So everybody's getting on Nell. But Melody had it worse than Nell though, and so because the men had also gained up on Melody when she was on there because her and Maurice used to get into it, um, and of course Martell, and of course her and Marceau used to get into it, especially when it came to Miss Van. Her and Marceau used to get into it. So now that she's gone, um, I was wondering who they were gonna gain up on, but now we know who that person is, and is Nell. Um, but before we get started, let's do housekeeping real quick. Um, Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976 says that there's allowance for fair use of copyrighted material for such purposes as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research as examples of activities that might qualify as fair use. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So, episode 10 started off with Trish going to meet up with her friend at a restaurant, and Trish is sharing with her that she has been seeing Dr. Francis and that is helping her a lot. She shared with her that she was able to open up and be emotional with Dr. Francis, and that she was able to talk about her parents, and she said that she really does enjoy the counseling session with Dr. Francis, and she feels that it's helping her off, it's helping her, and it's paying off for her. And then she also shares with her that she doesn't like to get close to people because she's afraid of losing them. So that's why she doesn't open up and get close to people. And then that's when her friend said, yeah, she said, we were friends for a long time before I even knew anything about you, before you opened up to me. So she said, she understands. And kudos to Trish, for going to go see Dr. Francis. And I applaud her um, for, mental health is important. And I don't know if she's paying for the sessions or if the show was paying for it. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who's paying for it, but it's good. If the show is paying for it, that's awesome because now she's on the show, getting paid to be on the show. And then also the show is paying for her sessions with Dr. Francis, and she's getting the healing and the counseling that she needs. So that's a win-win for Trisha. So shout out to her. And I love Dr. Francis. Like I said before, I think that he's an excellent person. So then the next scene, we have Kimmi going to this soap making place. So it's like a craft session that she's invited the girls to. So it's Kimmi, Destiny, Trish, and Letitia Scott. So they meet up and they're making soap, and Destiny was the last person to arrive. And so, excuse me, and when Destiny comes, of course, that's when the drama starts. So they start asking Destiny what's going on with her and her love life and what she got going on. So she shares with them, that she, is not dating or talking to Lance anymore, but she had a business meeting or meet up with what's her name? Quan, and then but what's her name? Kimmi says she likes to call him Googly Eyes. But she tells him, his name is Quan, and she said that when she talked to Lance about him, and that if he was interested in her, Destiny said she doesn't mind dating him. And so then she said Lance hits her with the fact that he is his god brother. And so um, um, Tish was like, well, I guess, you're just going to keep it all in the family and stuff. So they talk and laugh about that. So then um, Destiny asks, where's Nell? And then Kimmi says she didn't invite Nell because Nell has an event planned for them, for everybody this evening. And so she's going to be preparing and getting ready for the event. She didn't invite her. And so Destiny was like, oh, okay, so that's the reason you didn't invite her. She was like, I thought it was you didn't invite her because of Letitia. And then everybody's like, what do you mean? What does that mean? And she says, being messy, carrying the bone, moving the storyline. Basically, she's doing what Giselle does. Okay, this is what Giselle's good at. This is when she did this part, I said to myself, that's something that Giselle does. She said that Nell had told her that they had talked about the situation in LA and how they had to leave LA early because of Lance's baby. So Nell told her that Letitia Scott needs to keep her motherfucking that she needs to keep her name out of her MF mouth, and keep my name out your mouth. That's what Nell told Destiny, and Destiny told that to them there. So then, of course, Letitia gets upset, all in her feelings, and they're like, okay, so they're gonna probably bring it up to her tonight. So then they talk about that or whatever. So then the next scene after that is, of course, the event that Nell was having. Okay, so the first people to arrive, um, so the first people. Oh yeah, so let me back up too. I forgot this part. So then, um, when they're at the place making the soap, and they're talking about Nell and how she felt about Letitia talking about her. Um, Trish also chimes in and she says that she has talked to Nell, and Nell had told her that she didn't like how Letitia Scott was all up in Chris's face when she was confronting him, and she was, like pointing her finger and being all in her husband's face. She didn't like that. So basically, Nell, in other words, is saying like she doesn't see it for for Letitia right now, and she's not happy with her right now. So basically, Trish was co-signing what Destiny was saying. So it seems like that these four women are now going to be against Nell. And like I said earlier, Nell, tag, you are it. Because Melody's not on the show, they need somebody to devour, they need somebody to attack, they need somebody to jump on. So that person is going to be Nell Fletcher. And I feel like the real reason why they didn't invite Nell is not because she had an event. Yes, that could be part of the reason why, because Nell had an event. But I feel also part of the reason is Kimmi was in cahoots with production. I believe that Kingdom Reign production is really messy because just like what you see, what happened in Bell Collective with the whole Glenn and the questions that were asked, and Latrice didn't write those questions, but they dragged the whole season and made it seem like Latrice was the one who wrote them or had something to do with it, and then come to find out, production is the one who did it. So I'm not just trying to intertwine the two shows, but I'm just trying to make a point. My point is, Kingdom Reign production is really, really messy. They did that on Bell Collective, and I feel like they did this here too. I feel like they knew that Destiny and Nell had that conversation, and Nell saying that Letitia needs to keep her name out of her effing mouth. They told Destiny to bring that at the thing, and then of course, then Kimmi later on, with production, co-host and got that going. In my opinion, that's how I feel. I don't put anything past that production. So they didn't invite her on purpose because to make her feel left out, then that's going to incite, violence or whatever. That's going to incite some kind of action. Okay, for every action, there's a reaction, right? For every action, there's a reaction. And they knew that. So they knew that if they Nell was probably going to feel some type of way. She already doesn't like Letitia because how she confronted Chris and she was all in his face. They knew they were going to get some kind of reaction from Nell because Nell's like loud. She talks really loud and she's, she can get very animated. So they knew that. So they put the battery in Kimmi's back to go to do this. And then Kimmi, now, one thing I will say about Kimmi's like showing her true colors. Like we never thought Kimmi was an angel. Those of us who've been watching the show for day one, those of us who are millimeters, we know that Kimmi is not an angel. She has shown her mean side before, but now she's like really, really showing her mean side. Like she is a mean girl. She is. So then, the next thing is, so it's finally for the Fletcher event, right? So the first people to arrive is Maurice and Kimmi. And then after Maurice and Kimmi is Ken and Trish. And then after Kim and Trish, I think it was Martell. Martell shows up by himself, right? So then, people are starting to come in. Then Letitia Marceau shows up. So, um, then Kimmi tells Nell that they had a get together earlier in the day with the four girls, and she tells her that they didn't invite her because they knew that she had the event plan, or she knew she had the event plan, and she didn't want to disrupt what she had going on for the day, so that's why they didn't invite her. But then Nell gets in her confessional and she sounds like she was hurt by being left out and she felt like the girls didn't invite her on purpose. That's what I just said earlier. My point. That's exactly my point. And I feel like production has a hand in that too. They didn't invite her on purpose because even though she has something going on for the day, for the event, if they truly wanted to be decent human beings, they could have invited her and then she still could have went ahead and did her thing because I'm sure she paid other people to set up and plan and get the coordinate everything. I'm sure she didn't have to do every single thing by herself. And then Fletcher could have stayed back and did it, but they purposely didn't invite her because they wanted to create a storyline and they wanted to create a scene for for what ended up happening. So then Fletcher says that they're waiting for Destiny to show up, for Destiny and Lance to show up. They kind of assumed that Lance and Destiny were going to be showing up. And then they said that it was a couples event. And then Kimmi was like, oh, this is a couples event? And then Martell was like, ish. And he was like, I'm the ish because he was the only one there without a date. And then this fool gonna open up his shirt because Maurice told him to, pretty much was like, oh, you got a shirt. He had a picture of Coleslaw. The picture of him and Coleslaw in Atlanta at that polo event. So there was a polo event by one of these designer or store owner. I forgot his name. Wilson. His last name is Wilson. Forgot his first name. Somebody Wilson that lives in Atlanta and he owns a store in Phillips Plaza in Atlanta. And he had like a polo event that he has actually every single year. So the Fletchers were there, and so was Coleslaw, and so was Martell. And there's a picture of Martell and Coleslaw together. So Martell had that picture on his shirt. First of all, that he could have found something better, a better picture of them together because that picture Coleslaw looked like a hot mess, like she always does. She had the hat It was an ugly hat. It looked like I said again, like one of them hats that people go to Michael's Arts and Craft, and you get one of those arts and craft supply things, and you create your own hat. That's what it looked like to me. But anyway, so he pretty much was trying to say he wasn't there by himself. He was trying to say that Coleslaw was there with him in spirit because she was on his shirt. Child, whatever. Martell's a loser, okay? He's just gonna always be a loser. Poor child. So then Destiny shows up. Destiny shows up with Will. And she shocks everybody, and everybody was gagged. They were like, oh my goodness, we didn't, they didn't expect that. So everybody was gagged that she showed up with Will instead of Lance. And then Lance shows up with a date. And then when Lance shows up, he tells us in the confessional that he knew Destiny was going to come with somebody, but he thought it was going to be his god brother, Twan. He didn't think it was going to be Will. So he was surprised as well, too. Everybody was surprised to see her with Will. So then when Lance shows up and with his date, and Destiny had showed up with her date, Marceau, being the smartass that he is, he was like, I guess that answers the Lance question because, like I said, everybody was assuming that it was going to be Lance. And then, so then also Lance in his confessional, he says that Destiny showing up with Will, he says that does it bother him? Yeah, a little bit, but it doesn't bother him enough to where it would be an issue. My thing is, I was like, Lance, this shouldn't even bother you at all, point blank, period, because I don't feel like they had like a real relationship to begin with. I think they were casually dating. They probably didn't even do. And I feel like Lance doesn't owe her any explanation. He doesn't owe her anything. And I feel like Destiny doesn't owe him anything either. So they both don't owe each other anything because it wasn't a serious relationship. And I believe it was fake anyway. I believe it was just a storyline. It wasn't even a real relationship, in my opinion. So then next, they play a game. And then the two people who were last standing and who won was Marceau and Martel. But technically it was really Martel because Marceau cheated by pretending to, have a spoon. Well, you have to see it. So anyway, Martel won the games, basically. So then next, the girls are sitting. Okay, so Destiny, Letitia, Kimmi, and Trish, they're sitting. They're trying to get it cracking. Okay, so I'm sure production probably went over to them and said, "We need y'all to get the storyline going. We need you guys to get this shit popping and cracking." And that's what they did. So they're like, "We need to talk to Nell." Pretty much, they're trying to confront Nell. And so Nell was over there talking to her son, Lance, and the girl that he brought to the party. So then Letitia's like, I'm gonna go ahead and talk to Nell. I'm gonna be since Kimmi asked me not. She said since Kimmi asked me nicely to address the situation with Nell, she said I'm just gonna go outside and wait for Kimmi to go bring Nell so she can talk to Nell about it. So then Kimmi goes over there and tries to bring Miss Nell outside. So eventually, Miss Nell didn't want to go outside. She kept telling her like she didn't want to talk about it. I think Nell felt like it was going to be a bunch of BS. Like she must have felt that in her spirit. She said, she doesn't have anything to say, and she didn't want to speak to Letitia right now. But Kimmi insists that she comes outside and talks to her, right? So then she goes outside. Yes, because Nell, in her confessional, she tells us that she doesn't want to go outside to talk to Letitia, but she will go because it seems like Kimmi's pretty much making her go outside. And I felt like, Kimmi, why are you doing all this extra work trying to get Miss Nell to come outside so y'all can confront her about the conversation? And my thing is, Letitia, you a grown ass woman. Why are you not doing like Letitia should have went up to Nell and said, Nell, if you have a moment, if you don't mind, I would like to talk to you outside. Tisha should have did that herself. Why is Kimmi doing it for her? And then and then and then just like Miss Wanda always fights Letitia's battles for her too. We all knew that she was for years. We all those of us, like I said, who've been watching the show forever, For years we've always said Wanda was Letitia's mouthpiece, and that's exactly what she is. And then now Kimmi's being her mouthpiece. There was a time when Kimmi used to say that she didn't like Letitia, and if they weren't in-laws, she wouldn't even fuck with her. But a couple of seasons ago, you can tell that the Scots sat down with Kimmi and tell her to get in line and get information. So now she's like, real messy, and the mean side of her is really coming out. So they go outside. So they go outside, and then while they're outside, the camera flashes to the guys. So Will asked the guys, "What do you guys know about Destiny?" And then somebody said she's a good, wholesome girl. And then he said that's not what he was, looking. That's not the answer he was looking for. And then Martell is like, "What? You wanted us to say that she's a good knight or whatever?" So I felt like that part right there, it was a fucked up conversation to have in front of Lance, even though I feel like again, I don't think that there was anything that was going on with them, but for some reason Lance still acted like he was bothered. Maybe okay, maybe Lance had feelings for her. I mean, I don't know. I'm just guessing. Maybe he had feelings for her, and when they dated, it wasn't that serious. But for some reason, when Will started talking about Destiny, you can tell that that kind of bothered Lance a little bit. So then that made me think like, okay, well maybe it wasn't always a storyline. A storyline. Maybe something is there because he kind of felt like, damn, how are you gonna talk shit about her? Like, and I'm sitting right here. Um, you could just tell like he felt uncomfortable from his facial expression. And then Marceau brings up Lance into the conversation, you know, and kind of hints and tells Will that Lance used to date Destiny. And then Will was like, oh, you can tell he didn't know. And he said, oh, y'all dated. And and then they're pretty much like, yeah, they dated, but Lance is like, but I'm not tripping. Like, it's, whatever you got going on is you. And then Maurice is like, I thought it was funny. Maurice told Will, he was like, oh, so you didn't know that you were the rebound guy. So then everybody starts laughing. So I kind of like how Maurice did that because basically you can tell that Lance was feeling some type of way. And then by Maurice calling Will the rebound guy, it kind of made Lance feel a little bit better because it kind of validated him in the situation. So I don't know, but I felt what he was doing right there, and I have to like, even though I hate to give these people props, I have to give Maurice's props for doing that, and Marceau for bringing up that Lance and Destiny had a thing going on because it seemed like Will didn't know, and Will was kind of like, pretty much saying, is she a hoe or am I gonna get lucky tonight or what type of girl is she? And I'm not a fan of Destiny either. Can't stand Destiny, but right is right, wrong is wrong. So I'm in this part right here. I'm not gonna bash her because um, it's not called for. You know what I'm saying? So, um, but that's just something that I noticed. So then, so now we go outside, right? So now the camera goes back outside where Kimmi and the girls are, and now they're confronting Miss Nell. So they're talking about the situation in L.A. when Nell said they had to leave L.A. early because Lance was having a baby. The baby was in delivery, and so they're going back and forth arguing about that. So then Letitia asked Nell. So she said, "So Nell, why did you guys have to leave L.A. early?" And then Nell says, "That's none of your effing business." Or did she say effing? I don't think she said effing. She said, "That's none of your business. I don't owe you anything. I don't have to answer that question." And she said, and she didn't want to talk about her granddaughter. And she said, her granddaughter was off limits. She doesn't want to talk about her granddaughter or answer any questions when it comes to her granddaughter. So then Letitia says that Nell was backtracking on her story because she did tell her the reason why they left early was because of the grandbaby. And then Nell's like, that's not what I said. They're arguing back and forth. Then, of course, production, they do their messy trick they do a flashback. I mean, all production do that. You know, I've noticed that they're doing that. You know, it's funny because in Love and Marriage Huntsville, they didn't always do this. I know they do that on Real Housewives, but now they're doing it on Love and Marriage Huntsville. So they did a flashback and they showed yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think they've ever done that. I'm gonna have to go back and watch the other episodes, but I don't think they've ever done that on Love and Marriage Huntsville. But they did what they do on The Housewife. They did a flashback, and they showed Nell sitting at the table with the girls eating, and she did in fact tell them they left early because the baby was on the way and the baby was in labor. I mean, the mother was in labor to have the baby. So now, at the end of the day, you're on camera saying it, so you can't keep not necessarily lying, but you can't keep on denying that you didn't say it. And I hate to have to say anything about Letitia, but this part right here does kind of vindicate Letitia that you did say that because they have you on camera saying it. So then when she's, arguing with her and she's telling her she don't want to talk about her grandbaby, Letitia says she don't care. She's like, I don't care about your grandbaby. And I thought that was messed up. It was like, why would you say that you don't care about the grandbaby? The grandbaby has nothing to do with it. What she should have said is the grandbaby being born is not the issue. The issue is that you said you left early because of the birth of your grandchild. I'm not trying to talk about your grandchild. Yes, children and grandchildren are off limits. That's how Letitia should have said it. But the way she's like, I don't care about your grandbaby. I don't care about. I thought that was tacky, distasteful, and rude and mean. When I tell you, Kimmi and Letitia are horrible people, to me, in my opinion, they are. Because they say some nasty stuff. But then if somebody says anything to them or about them, they get bent out of shape and all hell breaks loose. They can't take the heat, but they can dish it out. And that's how they've been since day one, especially Letitia. She's a big old crybaby. She goes cries to her mom. Her mom does her dirty work for her. You know how they say she throw rocks and hides her hand. That's Letitia. She's not a woman enough to stand on her own 2 feet and fight her own battles. You got Kimmi on this episode fighting for Letitia because was Letitia's battle. It didn't have shit to do with Kimmi. It didn't because the conversation that Nell had was at the table with everybody in terms of them having to leave, but then also the conversation when she said Letitia needs to keep her name out of her mouth, that was between Destiny and Nell. That conversation was Destiny and Nell. But then Destiny went back and carried the bone and told the women what Nell said. So then if Letitia felt some type of way and she's upset and she's mad at Nell for saying keep my name out your effing mouth, then she should have addressed that directly with Miss Fletcher, not have Kimmi go over there and do her dirty work for her. And Kimmi, you're a punk because you knew it wasn't your battle, but you chose to jump in because you just wanted to be messy and have something to talk about. And so your ass is a mean girl, and you've always been a mean girl, and your true colors are showing. You know how they say your slip is showing, your slip is really showing. So then, as they're going back and forth arguing, um, the men can hear them inside. The men get up because they hear the women are arguing. Um, Marceau says he knows that that is Nell and Tisha because he's been thinking about it all day. Bingo. When he said that right there, y'all, I knew production had something to do with this right here. They set this up because that's what he said. He said he knew the people arguing outside was Nell and Tisha, and he had been thinking about it all day. So they all came with the intent to start this argument with Nell to confront her. Because after that scene from the soap place, they had their conversation. They knew their assignment. Okay, so tonight, this is what we're going to do. We are going to confront her. we're going, and that's why they kept making her. That's why they kept asking her to go outside to talk about it. I mean, how many times did they ask her to come outside to talk about it? Kimmi would not leave her sight inside until Nell came outside. So this was premeditated, like I said from the beginning. And Marceau gave he gave that he gave what's it called, he told it that's the word I'm looking for. He told that it was very premeditated. So then while they're arguing, Kimmi is the one who started yelling first. But Kimmy's gonna say, she's gonna tell Miss Nell, you're not gonna keep hollering and yelling at me. But she was the one who started yelling first. Unless we missed something, unless those of us in TV land, they didn't show us on our TV screen that Nell was yelling first, but Kimmi was yelling first. Kimmi started yelling. Because they were arguing. They were going back and forth, still trying to get Nell to admit that she said what she said about having to leave early. And then Kimmi gonna jump in and start yelling and screaming and say that it was Miss Nell. So then they jump up, they get in each other's faces. Now it's getting heated. So the guys come over there, try to break up the fight, and then Destiny jumps and tries to pull Miss Nell away. Um, Trish tries to pull Kimmi away because they're in each other's face, like they're arguing. And then Kimmi tells Nell, she says, if you don't stop hollering at me, I'm going to throw your ass in that pool. That's what Kimmi told Miss Nell. Now, that was horrible. That was disgusting. That was trifling. Because how you gonna tell a grown ass woman because you feel that she's yelling and raising her voice at you that you are going to throw her in the pool? I mean, I don't know. To me, that was horrible. That was, I mean, I know it's a reality show and they threaten each other and they talk a lot of stuff, and I know in other reality shows they throw drinks in each other's faces and try to hit each other. Love and marriage. I mean, love and hip hop. They do that on Love and Hip Hop, and they've done that in Housewives and stuff. But on this show, this shows um, how cruel and low Kimmi will go. And it wasn't even her battle. It wasn't even her fight. It was Letitia's. But for her to insert like that and do that, I'm so glad Melody left the show. I'm glad because they're just a bunch of low life. So then when they break them apart, you know, Maurice, it looked like Maurice came and snatched Kimmi. It looked like he just pulled her. Because at first Maurice wasn't even coming outside. It was Fletcher and Marceau, and then Will and other people, Lance and stuff started coming outside. But then you saw Maurice, and then you saw Kimmi kind of talk. So I feel like Maurice pulled on Kimmi, and Paul was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" So then they go inside. When they go inside, Kimmi apologizes, and Kimmi in her confessional is telling us that her dad was abusive, and she said that her dad would drink, he was a drunk, and he would holler and stuff like that. And she said that it's not okay with her. And she said after her parents got a divorce, she felt like she was her mother's protector. She doesn't like it when people are loud and start hollering and yelling. I call BS on that. The reason why I say BS is because she has never shared with us, that her father was abusive, that her father was an alcoholic. And not saying that she has shared everything with us thus far, because the thing about the Scots are they don't share a lot about their personal life. Because, see, this show from the beginning until Melody left, everything was about Martell and Melody. The whole entire storyline. They carried this show on their backs from season one until she left. Now that she's gone, everybody's like, okay, maybe the Scots will start sharing, their personal lives. But they still haven't, because this whole season's been really about Trish and her counseling and having to go see Dr. Francis, and then Ken and Trish's relationship. Scott hasn't showed anything, and obviously Martell's not going to show anything. So we don't know this because she's never shared this. However, I say BS. I felt like it was just an excuse because I think after she thought about it, she probably felt stupid for threatening to throw Nell in the water, and realized too when she snapped back into freaking reality, like it wasn't even her battle. This was not your fight. This is the beef was or the issue is between Letitia, Scott, and Nell Fletcher. It had nothing to do with Kimmi. But Kimmi inserted herself, and then she's talking about because she was her mom's protector. Okay, you were your mom's protector, but you're not Letitia's protector. Letitia can fight her own battles. She's a grown ass woman. That's the thing. Everybody in the show, they treat her like a baby and cater to her and stuff like that, and that's why she has the disposition that she does. So then Nell said that she accepts Kim's apology, and she also apologized for yelling. And then Letitia's gonna say she's sitting down on the other side, and she made sure she said it on camera. Letitia said that it will be a cold day in hell before she apologizes to Nell Fletcher. A cold day in hell before she apologizes. When she said that, that made me think of, I don't want to say the person's name, but her family member that she refused to apologize to. That she had beef with this person until it was too late. And that just tells what kind of person Letitia is. That, I mean, I know we all can hold grudges and we can be upset and stuff like that, but I felt like was minor. It wasn't that big of a deal. True indeed, Nell did say that. She's caught on camera saying and telling them that they left because of the baby. Yes, Letitia, when they showed that she was vindicated. However, she still could have handled it in a different way and still made reality drama. Okay, she could have just said, she could have had a one-on-one conversation with Nell. Nell probably would have admitted it to her if it was just those two together. But I think Nell's real issue with Letitia is not so much about the baby and the grandbaby situation. I think it's the fact that she went up to Fletcher and confronted Fletcher, and she was all in his face and pointing. I think that's what the real issue is for Nell. Nell's issue is the way Letitia Scott confronted Chris Fletcher. It's not about the grandbaby, but she's making it about the grandbaby and what she said and didn't say because of, I don't know, maybe reality TV and it caused drama. But deep down, I don't believe that's the real issue. And so then Marceau asked Kimmi and Nell to hug. They hugged, even though it doesn't seem like it was genuine, but they hugged and they apologized. Um, and then, of course, Letitia did not apologize. And so we're going to see what happens on the next episode. Hopefully, they can have a conversation and they can apologize to each other. But Kimmi did apologize, and I don't know. I still think she's a mean girl. Kimmi does have this side of her that is can be very, very cruel to somebody that didn't even do nothing to her. Because Nell didn't do anything to her. That is a beef between Letitia and Nell Fletcher. But y'all get down in the comments. Tell me your opinion. Do you agree with me that Kimmi is a mean girl, or that she just had a one off? She had a bad day or something. But anyway, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, comment, let me know your opinion, and I will see you on the next video. Take care.